I was cutting into the tuna when he said my name. Not aloud. Not in English. In Japanese. I didn't look up. The knife paused mid-slice. My heartbeat didn't. Across the table, the client smiled politely, glass hovering near his lips. My wife's father leaned back in his chair, relaxed, confident, too confident. The kind of man who believes he understands the room because he paid for it. He spoke again. Soft, casual. Once the papers are signed, he won't be a problem. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. I chewed slowly, let the soy sauce burn my tongue, let the silence settle like dust. My wife laughed at something the client said, her hand brushing her father's arm, familiar, intimate. I had spent 4 years in Tokyo. I was fluent by necessity, by survival. They didn't know that. I swallowed. My reflection stared back at me from the lacquered table, calm eyes, neutral face, obedient son-in-law. The man they thought they could erase without resistance. The client responded, voice low. And your daughter, she agrees. A pause. A smile. She's already taken care of him. That was when my fingers tightened around the knife. Not from rage. From focus. The rest of the dinner passed like a rehearsed lie. Wine poured, contracts referenced vaguely, futures implied. My wife never met my eyes. She talked about renovations, about children, about after asterisk. After what? In the car home, she rested her head against the window, humming softly. I watched streetlights pass, counted them like breaths. She smelled like citrus and deception. At home, she kissed my cheek. You were quiet tonight. Jet lag, I said. She nodded too quickly. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed his words until they lost sound and became shape. A plan, a removal, me. By morning, the suspicion had teeth. Her phone was face down now. Her calendar suddenly full. Her father's company lawyers CC'd on emails I wasn't meant to see until I looked. I didn't confront. I cataloged. I remembered the nights she came home late and blamed traffic. The way her father had insisted I sign documents I hadn't read. The sudden prenuptial amendment framed as protection. Protection from who? From me. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was administrative. And it was intimate. I became invisible on purpose. I signed where told, smiled when required, played the role of the man already fatting from relevance. Inside, I was building a timeline. Phone records first. Then bank transfers. Small amounts, consistent, from her personal account to a private investigator firm. I recognized the name. They specialized in asset displacement, making people disappear financially. I hired my own. Quietly. I learned that my wife had been seeing someone, not an affair in the romantic sense, something colder, strategic, a board member's son, a future alignment. Love had never been the point. I learned my father-in-law had been negotiating my removal from the company I built, using my marriage as leverage, claiming incompetence, instability. I learned they believed I was monolingual. That part almost made me smile. I kept attending dinners, kept nodding, listened to Japanese conversations blossom freely around me like poison flowers. They spoke of timing, of compensation, of how I would land safely if I cooperated. If. Every word sharpened me. I waited. The final confirmation came in a folder. Thick, clean, undeniable. Recordings, emails, contracts, a drafted separation agreement signed by my wife dated 2 weeks before that dinner. Before she kissed me goodbye that morning, I invited her father for coffee. Just us. He arrived confident, left shaking. I slid the folder across the table. I understand Japanese, I said, calm, polite. The color drained from his face in stages. He tried to speak, failed. I heard everything, I continued, and I documented more. Silence. He reached for the folder like it might bite. I don't need your apology, I said, I need your signature. On a document transferring full control back to me, a reversal clause he'd buried years ago, assuming I'd never find it. He signed, hands trembling. My wife cried when I handed her the divorce papers. Real tears, too late. I loved you, she said. I nodded. You loved what I provided, I corrected, and what you thought I didn't understand. She collapsed inward, her world carefully engineered had snapped shut. I didn't raise my voice, didn't accuse. I simply laid out the truth piece by piece like a forensic report. By the end, she couldn't meet my eyes. I stood. I won't ruin you, I said, you did that yourself. I walked out while she was still begging for forgiveness, for silence, for time. None of those were currency anymore. Months later, I passed the restaurant where it began. Same table, different people. I felt nothing. No anger, no grief, just clarity, the kind that comes after a storm burns itself out. Betrayal doesn't break you if you let it educate you. They underestimated me because I let them. They spoke freely because they thought I was deaf. I was. I was listening. And when I finally walked away, I took everything they thought they'd stolen, including my silence.